And now we're moving to a topic again that requires you to be good with shapes, to be to be able to visualize the diagram in front of you. So we've got a pyramid here and a rectangular base. So we want to calculate y, which is the sloping edge, the length of a sloping edge of the pyramid. So what does it mean by sloping edge? It means we want to find the length of this right here. This length right here. That's what is sloping. So, and again, a trigger word here, or rather a trigger in the image itself, that we have a right angle here. So what do you think what would be the first step to take? Yeah, Pythagoras. Trig would be if we needed to find the angle, which we will actually be doing in the next part. But if you want to find the length, yeah, we use Pythagoras' theorem. And this is actually a special case because if we want to use Pythagoras' theorem, we know the height, which is 4. But we also need this this base here. But how would we do this? How do you guys think we would find this base? Use 3 and 4.8. And how would you use them? You'd use them again in Pythagoras' theorem, right? Because this is a rectangular base. So again, annotate onto it. This is a rectangle. So there's a right angle here. So now we can use the diagonal. The length of the diagonal of the rectangle is equal to 3 squared plus 4.8 squared, and then all square rooted. Is a Pythagoras' theorem. It's about 5.66 is the length of this entire diagonal. So to find the length of this base, we'd have to divide this by 2. So d over 2 is equal to 5.66 divided by 2, which is 2.83. So now we have this length as 2.83. And now, so we can use Pythagoras' theorem on the main slope. So that the slope of the line, or alternatively y, is equal to square root of 2.83 squared plus 4 squared. Again, this is the hypotenuse. This is the longest side. So if you put that into your calculator, you'll get an answer of about 4.90 meters. So y in this case is 4.90. So the thing with 3D shapes, often there are many repeated applications of Pythagoras' theorem. So we had to do one case for the base, and then one for the main sloping edge as well, because we're extending the shape into 3 dimensions. So that's an important thing to keep in mind when doing these problems. The next one, and this is where we use trig, the angle between the sloping edge and the rectangular base. So what angle would we be referring to? So we take the sloping edge again, we draw it, and a very common misconception I've seen is that students will assume that it's this angle here with the actual side length of the rectangle. But remember, we're thinking about a 3D shape that's intersecting the base. So if we actually think about the angle that is intersecting the base at, it would not be this side length, rather it would be this right here. That would be, if you imagine it in 3D, that would be the angle that it's making with the base itself. So again, we need to find this angle here. So we know that this is 4 meters, and we calculated earlier that this is we know this is 2.83. So what trig function would you use to relate 4 and 2.83? Is that because sine is opposite over hypotenuse, right? Remember, y is the sloping edge. This is the hypotenuse. This is the longest side. Remember, we have the right angle here, so you can draw onto the diagram. Yes, it's the tan function. So again, what I'll do is I'll draw out a small representation of the diagram just on the side. We know that this is right angled and this is 2.83. So 4, and then this is the angle. So if you can imagine, we're kind of rotating it out into a 2D plane. We're rotating the triangle that we had in 3D just into 2D so that's easier to work with. And then we know that tan is equal to opposite over adjacent. So the opposite is 4 over the adjacent. And then theta would be equal to the inverse tan of 4 over 2.83, and you get an answer of 54.7 degrees. Remember, for angles, you round it to 54 to 1 decimal place. So the angle was this, but we rounded to 1 decimal place for angles, and 3 significant figures for all other calculations. And there is the mark scheme for the first one. So now, if you think about another topic that's been challenging for students over the years, is transformations. And this is a good question because it involves many of these transformations. So the first thing we need to do is draw image of triangle A after reflection in the line x equals to 0. What we first do is we identify the line. Oh, let me go back. Can you also use the sloping edge y and use the sides 4.9 and 4 and use sine? Yes. So another good approach is to do alternative method. So we know y is equal to 4.9. So yes, we could also use sine. So we could say that sine theta is equal to 4 over 4.9, opposite over hypotenuse. And if you put that into your calculator, you'll get the exact same answer. So yes, to answer your question, you can use it. And in fact, it's a good way of checking if you have time left over at the end. So the next part is drawing these images after they're being transformed. So the first thing is line x equals 0. Now, a very common misconception I see is that students will think that because we have x equals to 0, x is the horizontal line. So x equals to, sometimes I've seen students draw this as the line x equals to 0. But remember, x equals to 0 means that it actually lies on the y-axis, because on the y-axis, any line, any coordinate will have the coordinate x equals to 0. And then now this is the line of reflection that we need, and we can just reflect this in this line. So we just kind of imagine this as a mirror and then reflecting it over. This point stays on here because it's on the mirror, and so does this one. And then this point is 1, 2, 3 units away in this direction. So it's 1, 2, 3 to the left this time. And so it would look something like this. Obviously, in the exam, you got to do this with a ruler. But that's what the shape would look like. And then if you just want to be extra sure, you can just write part A, subpart I, so that the examiner knows which part of the question you're actually drawing for. And then for the second part, triangle A after enlargement, scale factor 2, center 0, 4. So again, we identify the coordinate for the center, so 0, 4. So that's this here, right here. On the y-axis, x is 0, y is 4. And we want to enlarge this with scale factor 2. So the way we do this is that we take a line from the center of enlargement and we extend it to the point. And then we note that this is 2 units long, right? So if we were to enlarge this by factor 2, how far away would it need to be from the point of enlargement? How far away would it be? How many units for enlarging it with scale factor 2? 4 units would take us all the way here. So that would be the top corner of our triangle. And then we do the same process for this bottom corner. There's actually another way of doing it, so I'll work through both. So the first thing we do is that if we use the normal method, we've got 3 units to this bottom corner. So it would be 6 units when you enlarge it by a scale factor 2 from the center of enlargement. So we just move 6 units down. So it would be this point right here. Now, what do you notice about that is one way of doing it, but there's also another way. What do you notice about the side length of this new triangle? Yeah, twice the original. And why is that? Because it's been enlarged by scale factor 2. So you could always go back to your question and it's just sense checking. Does it make sense where my point is lying? Yes, because the side is twice of how much it originally was. So in fact, and that's actually a better option, instead of drawing the line from the center to this point, which isn't on the same vertical line. So now it's actually harder to extend this by scale factor 2, we could just consider the side lengths of the triangle. So what would the coordinates of this final point be if we consider the method of side lengths? What would be the coordinates? So the original triangle has the bottom base has 3 units. So what would be the base of the new triangle? 6, 2. Yep, that would be the coordinates, because 6, 2 is over here. And yes, that means we have a base length of 6 units. And then we can just connect the 3 points. And then this is I. Because right there inside, just to be clear. And then the final part of this is to draw the triangle after a translation by the vector -5, 3. So if we just break down the vector, -5 is in the x direction, so it's either x direction, so you're either moving right or left. And then 3 is in the y direction, so you're either moving up or down. So what does a negative mean? Are you moving right or left? Yeah, left. So we're moving 5 units left. So each point gets moved, translated 5 units to the left. So if we start with this top right, again, for these questions, we just take it 1 unit at 1 point at a time. So take this point, we move it 5 units to the left, it moves over here. And then, so that's the initial with only in the x direction, but then also we need to consider it's also moving 3 units in the y direction. And would it be moving up or down? Yeah, up. So that's our point. And then we move it 3 units up, so it moves to over here. And then just go back and erase the old one. And then now you could do this for each point, but again, considering side lengths is a very important tool, very good tool, in fact, to make it efficient. So instead of doing it individually for each vertex, we just know that translations don't affect the side length. They don't change, they don't enlarge or stretch triangle. So it would still remain at 1 unit. So you'd have the triangle still with 1 unit. Again, the base is 3 units, so you know that it will end over here, and that would be your triangle. And of course, you could go back and check for each vertex that you are doing 5, -3. So that's our first part done, part A. You can see all the examiners want are looking for are just clear coordinates. And you could, if you want it to be clear, just label the question number on it. So now for the second part, this is also a common typical exam question, which is where you need to describe the transformation. Instead of drawing it, you describe it. So we're given shape A and shape B, and we want to describe the transformation. So we know that this is clearly a rotation because the shape is being rotated. So in the exam, obviously you'll have tracing paper, so you could do it. I just want to show you a method of how you do it without tracing paper. Of course, using it in tracing paper would be the most efficient way. But just in case, here's another method of doing it. Let me just clear this. So the way you do it is that you look at, again, you take one vertex at a time. So you go to one, and then you connect it to the corresponding vertex on the other triangle. So what the corresponding vertex is this one right here. That's where it's moved. And then what you do is you can do that for another vertex as well. And it suffices to just do it for 2 of the vertexes, as you'll see, because what you'll do next is we'll draw the perpendicular bisector of each line. So you can kind of eyeball this, but you could do it more formally, because I know this is 1 unit down and 3 units to the right. So if I had to make a perpendicular line, it would be going, firstly, you have to identify the midpoint, the perpendicular bisector. And then the gradient of this, since this is -3, since this is -1/3, the gradient of the new line would be 3. So the line would look something like this. It's not perfect, but in the exam you'll have rulers to work with. So okay, that's the first perpendicular bisector. Now what we need to do is find these perpendicular bisector for the second line. So it's easy to see that this is the midpoint of this line here, the second point. And what you do is you draw, you can see this is 1 unit up and 3 units to the right. So it has a gradient of 1/3. So the perpendicular bisector would have a gradient of -3, because they're negative reciprocals of each other. And then you just connect it through. And what you notice about these perpendicular bisectors, they meet at one point. And that point is in fact the center of rotation for the two triangles. So, and it would also work if you did this for this third corner as well. If you were to do it for this third vertex, you would find this is the midpoint approximately over here. And then you'd see that the perpendicular bisector of this line would also go through this point. And then the intersection of these three perpendicular bisectors is the center of rotation. Again, this is a 3-mark question. So what we first need to do is identify the type of transformation, which is a rotation. And then we would have to do by how many degrees and in what direction. So you can see that this is being rotated like this. So it's in a clockwise direction and it's being moved by 90 degrees. Rotation, so you could clockwise 90 degrees. So that would be your second mark. And then for the final mark, you'd have to give the center of rotation. And what we've calculated is center is 4, -1. And obviously, this isn't the most efficient way. If you have tracing paper, you could just, it's a lot easier to do it. But this is just a way to just algebraically check what you're doing is right. And then, again, you can see the answer. 1 mark for each. And as you can see, that's the rotation point that we identified correctly from this method.